Hello and good afternoon, and welcome to our Candidate Chancellor Forum. Today we are pleased to welcome Dr. Kirkendall. It is pronounced Kuykendall with an R sound, even though it's spelled with a U. We are pleased to have her with us throughout the day, and especially pleased to have her with us today for the campus, the UNM-Taos campus forum. So a couple Zoom housekeeping announcements before we get started. If we can ask that you keep your microphones on mute to eliminate any background noise to make sure that we can hear our candidate well. And we do invite you to turn your cameras on to give Dr. Kirkendall the opportunity to see who she's speaking with. She is live and in person here at the UNM-Taos Clower Campus Conference Room. We're very pleased to have her here. We are, just to know, we are recording today's session. So if for privacy or personal reasons you prefer not to have your image or voice recorded, you are welcome in that case to turn off your microphone and or your camera. We will ask Dr. Kirkendall in just a moment to introduce herself and to share a little bit about herself and why she's interested in the chancellor position at UNM-Taos. As we did last time, we'll open it up to questions from participants. We will ask that you send those questions directly to me in the chat to Anita Bringas, and I will be assisting by moderating the Q&A with Dr. Kirkendall. So without further ado, it is my distinct honor and pleasure to introduce one of our chancellor finalists, Dr. Robin Kirkendall. Good afternoon and welcome.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Anita. I appreciate that welcome. Faculty, staff, students, it is amazing to be here with you today. I thank you for this opportunity and thank you for joining me. So a little bit about who I am and why I'm interested in UNM-Taos. I have 21 years of experience in higher education and didn't really plan on a career in higher education. I kind of fell into that, but fell in love with it once I did. I, like so many students, planned on going away to college. I had big plans right out of high school, had a full ride scholarship to UNM of all places, but then life happened. My big goal was to be an attorney. That was kind of my hope. But again, life happened and I had to take a step back, regroup just a little bit, and ended up going to the branch college in my hometown. Did that first semester right out of high school, and then life happened again. So I ended up having to sit out for a couple of semesters. That was really hard for me because I was a first generation college student, like so many of our students are. And I knew that education, it was kind of ingrained in my heart. It was something that I knew that I wanted. And so to have to take a step back was hard for me. But I kind of fought back, came back to my branch college to go back to school. But I was a non-traditional student, first generation college student, and I was facing some significant equity gaps. And one of them was socioeconomic. I had to work full time, putting myself through school, which is very similar to what a lot of our students have to do today. And I was privileged to be able to work there at the college. I had a full-time job as the secretary in the transitional studies lab. And so I got to work with students every day, one-on-one. And that's really where I got to see the impact that we as educators have on students. And I loved it. I absolutely fell in love with education from that standpoint. So that's where I really got introduced. I went on to main campus, got my bachelor's degree, got my master's degree in business administration. And then I moved to Clovis, New Mexico when I got a job as a full-time instructor there at Clovis Community College. I thought that I would be an instructor forever. I felt like I found my place because when I was able to impact students before, I saw as an instructor that had just increased so much. Being able to influence and impact the students on a daily basis, not just with content knowledge, but with life skills and work readiness, those kinds of things. I loved those opportunities. So when I had kind of got approached to move out of teaching and go into a little bit different role, it was hard. I almost didn't want to do that because I didn't want to lose that impact and that influence that I had with students. And what I realized is that I wasn't losing that impact. I was just changing it. I was changing the scope of the influence that I had. And I was able to broaden it. I was able to impact them in completely different ways. I was able to impact the peers, the people around me, my institution as a whole, and the community. And so I think it's really at that moment that I realized that higher education was no longer my career, it really was my calling. And I have such a passion for higher education, for students and for faculty and for what we do. And so my depth of experience, one of the assets, I think it's probably one of my strongest assets, is that I have been at every single level within a 2-year institution. I've been that non-traditional student, that first generation student. So I understand those students that are here today. I understand the obstacles that you guys are facing. And that gives me an opportunity to be able to relate and be relevant to you guys. But I've also been a support staff member. I've been a faculty member. I've been professional staff. I've been an administrator. But I've also been an interim president. I was fortunate to serve just under a year as interim president at Clovis Community College during our transition while we were looking for a new president. And I think that what that brings to UNM-Taos is we're kind of in unprecedented times. And I think that it gives the faculty and the staff and the students comfort in a new leader who truly has been at every single level and can relate and be relevant to all people. And I think that's important for higher education moving forward. So I think that that's a really powerful strength that I could bring as a new leader to UNM-Taos. So that's a little bit of the depth of my experience. I also have a breadth of experience as well. As I mentioned, I was a full-time faculty member. So I did that for 11 years full time. And once I had the opportunity to move into something a little bit different, I continued to teach part-time. And that's extremely important to me and for my career because I wanted to stay connected. I wanted to stay connected in all fashions. For me, I call that my 360 connection. And it allows me to stay connected to my field of study, which is economics. That's something that I have a passion about. But it also helped me to stay connected with students and with faculty. And during COVID especially, it was such a blessing to be able to be connected with students, to be able to hear the obstacles, the problems they were running into with technology and walking through that with them. So students that are here today, I was there with you. I understand the difficulties that you guys had. At the same time, the small victories that you had as well, and being able to walk through those things with students is very important. But on the faculty side, it was important to me to stay connected to the academics. And so stay connected with curriculum development and with assessment, with all of the New Mexico Common Core numbering system. I know that you guys went through a lot of pain over the last several years and in moving to that new Common Core numbering system. And I think I was there right along there with you. And I think being a part-time instructor has helped me stay connected from that standpoint. But I also have a lot of experience on the mentoring side. So all of the things that I was able to do as a faculty member, I got the privilege of being able to mentor faculty as a division chair to help them take those SLO objectives and or those SLOs and map that to assessment, to close that assessment feedback loop, to work with those situations where it's classroom management and how do we move through some of those obstacles. And so mentoring is something that I've always loved to do, and being able to impart some of the things that I have learned and experienced through the years, and being able to help faculty and staff along the way. So and some additional academic experience that I have experience in program evaluation and program development. I've developed programs, I've restructured programs. I have experience in accreditation, about 16 to 17 years of accreditation experience at my institution. I have kind of in various levels, but all the way, from from chairing criterion committees to actually writing portions of the assurance argument. So I understand that academic background and what faculty experience and the obstacles that they face, but also the triumphs that they have as well. So that's a little bit about my academic experience. I also have a student affairs experience, and I think that is so important because I think it really creates a well-rounded level of experience coming into a position like this. I understand the academic side, but I also understand the student affairs side. Currently, that's what my current role is. I oversee dual credit in early college, high school, admissions, financial aid, and academic advising, including career services and student organizations. And that's really important because, you know, the student success process is really important to make sure that students don't run into those gaps that keep them from persisting and retaining through the program and ultimately graduating. And so I work closely with my team from onboarding all the way to graduation. Now that structure is a little bit different from UNM-Taos, as obviously you guys know that those 4 areas that I oversee actually are broken out into 3 different departments at UNM-Taos. And what I love about that is all 4 of those areas are so interconnected with that student success process. And so what that tells me about UNM-Taos is that you guys have such a strong integration and collaboration to help make sure that that student success journey is what it's supposed to be. And so, I think that that my experience and my background in student affairs helps to complement what you guys have at UNM-Taos. So, academic experience, the student affairs experience, but I also have kind of a big picture experience. As I mentioned before, I served as interim president at Clovis Community College for just under a year. This was a competitive internal search. Our president took a job at Santa Fe Community College, and the board of trustees at our institution opened it up for an internal search. 5 of us applied, and I was selected for that position. And this was kind of a hard decision for me because the board made a very strict stipulation that if any of us applied for the interim position, that we could not apply for the permanent position. And I really kind of weighed out both of those options. But there's 2 really main reasons why I decided to apply for the interim. The first thing was I talked to several of my team members, and I could tell that they had a lot of apprehension and anxiety about this transition. And change is hard. And I know that many of you are probably experiencing some of the same things. Anytime you get a new leader in, you don't know what to expect. You don't know what kind of leadership style they have or how things are going to change. And change is difficult. And so I saw that in my faculty and staff, and I wanted to help through that transition. I really felt like I was the best person to work with the people within the institution to get through that transition. So that's my primary reason. The secondary reason was I wasn't sure if it was something that I wanted to do. I didn't know if being a president was, something that I wanted to move forward with. And I thought I want to jump into this opportunity and see if this is something that's for me. And I did, and I found out that I loved it. I absolutely loved being at that role. And I loved the interaction with state legislators. I loved having that holistic perspective of the institution. And again, being able to help the faculty and the staff transition through that, while still making sure that we kept in mind student success. The students through the whole process have to be that integral piece in the entire process. And so I found that that was a very important step moving forward. So that's a little bit about my background. I have a depth of experience. I've been in every single level of an institution, so I can relate and be relevant to everybody. I also have that breadth of experience. I have the academic side, I have the student services side, and then I have that big picture as a president. And so I think what that brings to UNM-Taos is a person who is very well-rounded, who understands all facets of the institution, but more importantly, has a real strong heart for people and for the faculty, the staff, and the students that are involved, and that we're all working toward that same mission of a quality education. So that's a little bit about me, why I'm interested in UNM-Taos. I think that the big thing that I can sum up for why I'm interested is the theme of the opportunity to make a difference. I'm kind of that person where it doesn't matter where I am or what I'm doing. My goal is always to make a difference right where I am. And I see so much opportunity to make a difference here at UNM-Taos. And so just to kind of cover a few of those things, I think that the first thing is, COVID. I think that's kind of a little bit of the elephant in the room, but we're really not post-COVID yet. But I think that we've made so many strides forward and we're getting closer to that. But it's been difficult. It's been hard. And I know what you guys have gone through. I see the students and you guys that are here today. Thank you for joining us. And I want to let you know, I know how hard it has been for you guys. And I had obstacles when I was going through school, but nothing like what you guys have had to endure. And so I look at it and I think that you guys have pushed through and you truly do bring a whole new meaning to the words grit and perseverance. And so I know UNM-Taos staff and faculty are very proud of you, but as a fellow educator, I want to tell you, I'm very proud of you for what you've accomplished during this time. For the faculty and the staff, it hasn't been easy for you guys either. And I understand that. I think that it's honestly for higher education and secondary education even, I think that as a nation, we haven't given enough credit to what our faculty and staff have gone through over the last 14 months. And so you guys are really true heroes in what you've done and what you've accomplished over this time frame. And so as I look at that as an opportunity to make a difference, I see an opportunity for us together as a team to be able to reimagine what the new normal is going to be like. It's not going to go back to the way it was. I mean, I think that it's safe to say that it will never get back to what we used to call normal. But I think we can identify what a new normal is. And I think together as a team, reimagining what that new normal is provides a really good opportunity to make a difference. I know that there are some things that you guys have learned that you're thinking, oh, I don't really want to go there again, but there's some other things that have been really good that we might be able to look at and say, hey, how do we, again, reimagine what higher education looks like? We have a hard job as educators. We're educating tomorrow's future, and that's tough, especially in a COVID world. But again, with difficult times, I think give us opportunities for great things. And there's an amazing team of faculty and staff here and students. And so I think that there's a lot of opportunity to kind of go the next level here at UNM-Taos. I think the second reason that I'm interested in UNM-Taos, again, in terms of making an opportunity to make a difference, is diversity. So I'm from rural New Mexico. My entire career is in rural New Mexico. I've worked at a Hispanic serving institution my entire career. And so I understand diversity. I understand obstacles that a diverse population experiences. But Taos is different. Taos has even a more diverse population. And I think a lot of that comes to, the integration, Taos Pueblo and Hispanic population. But what I love about this area is that it truly embodies the culture of Taos Pueblo and the Hispanic population and the diversity that is here. And that's one thing that I think that provides a great opportunity. I can be together with an entire group of people or an institution that is exactly like me, but I can't really make a difference if everybody is exactly like me. The opportunities come when people are diverse and we all bring something different to the table. So I think that's something that's exciting to me about UNM-Taos is the diversity that you guys do bring to the table. I think the next thing that is opportunity and why I'm so interested in UNM-Taos is innovation and growth. I look at what you guys have done over the last 11, 12 years and just the growth and the innovation and the forward thinking tells me that that's ingrained in UNM-Taos culture. And that's extremely enticing to a person like me. I'm very much of a visionary, a strategic leader that's very forward thinking. And so to have that strong foundation, I think provides a lot of opportunity to be able to do some really great things at UNM-Taos. And so so I think that that's a really strong mutual benefit for both me and for UNM-Taos as well. And then I'll say from kind of a personal perspective, if I can, I've been coming to UNM-Taos, my family and I have been coming here for about 18 years. We love this place. It's something that we have, we've actually talked about for years to say, you know what, when we retire, we want to try to get up closer to Taos County and that area. And so to have an opportunity where I can be in an area that I love, and I can embed in the community and be a part of the community and help to make it better while doing my calling, which is higher education, I can't think of anything better. And so I think that those are really kind of the major reasons why I see UNM-Taos as a really positive for me and why I'm interested. So.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Kirkendall, for that incredible introduction and opening remarks. We do have several questions coming in through the chat. I have some coming in through email and text as well, so I might be bouncing back and forth through devices. Okay. And thank you all to all of you for submitting those questions. Please continue to do so, and we'll get through as many as we can given the time allotted. So we'll start with the first question that was submitted by Amber Gordon with our Center for Academic Success and Achievement, CASA. And she asked, how do you foster collaboration and communication between staff, faculty, and students?
Right, communication, such a great question. You know, collaboration is an important thing. I'm definitely, I mentioned before, I'm a visionary strategic leader, but I'm also very much of a collaborative leader. I think that, I personally think I have great ideas, but I think that my ideas alone are just okay. It's when we pull everybody together to be able to have a voice, and everyone's different. When you have diversity, you have all these different people bringing something different to the table. And it's when you truly engage in that collaborative component that you get an initiative that is sustainable and has real viability for moving forward. And so I can come up with things on my own, but nothing like what we can do as a collaboration. So it's really important to pull all stakeholders involved. So pulling faculty, staff, and students in to hear their voice on how things are going. When we're looking at student initiatives, I don't like to make assumptions about what is going well for students and what is not going well. I want to hear that voice from them. I want to hear what obstacles they're facing. I want to know what successes they have. I love the success stories just as much, because that tells me, that communicates something very important, that things are going well and that we might not need to make changes. So I think it's important to ask those. For faculty and staff, it's the same thing. It's what's going well. What are the success stories? And I think you can start with COVID, saying what went well and what didn't go well. What are some things that you would like to keep and things that you really would like to stay away from? And how can we come together as a group to say, okay, what is our new initiative going to look like? And so it's really about bringing together a collective voice and allowing everybody the opportunity. Diversity, equity, and inclusion is a big component of that. And I think on inclusion, we have to be very intentional. I think that, like I said, is making sure that we're taking the time to ask every constituency group and allowing them the opportunity to have a voice at the table on all of those initiatives. So I think that's probably how I would foster that collaboration.
Excellent, thank you. This comes from one of our STEM faculty members, and she asks, what ideas do you have to support adjunct faculty, which we have very many in UNM-Taos?
So, you know, the hard part with adjunct faculty is that from an institutional perspective, you rely so much on adjunct faculty, but they have, this is just a small portion of what they do. Generally, they have other full-time jobs. And so a lot of times what happens is there's this, they feel as though that there's this disconnect between main campus and what's going on here and what they're doing. So I think transparency is the most important thing. and a certain level of communication, making sure that we're communicating with adjunct faculty just as much. If we have activities, a training, anything that we are doing for full-time faculty, we need to extend that to adjunct faculty as well. We need to provide that support so that when they're doing their assessment reports and they're having to work through that component and close that assessment feedback loop, that they have the support, whether it's through the department chair or it's through structured organization and initiative, that they have the tools that they need. Same thing with modalities. I know we've had to adjust a lot with COVID and the different modalities that we're teaching with and the learning tools. And so being able to extend and provide that opportunity for adjunct faculty, but to do it in a way that meets them where they are and not just what's convenient for us. Because I know a lot of them, like I said, a lot of adjunct faculty work full time. And so they're doing things either on the evening and doing curriculum development on the weekends. And so again, having some of those support services that help to meet their needs where they are.
Thank you so much. So there are a few questions coming in about the legislative process and priorities and experience working with legislators. I'm going to try to combine them as best I can. So a fair amount of the economic engine that helps UNM run UNM-Taos run is related to what happens at the Roundhouse and during legislative session. What is your experience working with legislators in advocacy for not just UNM-Taos, but UNM as a system and New Mexico education as a whole?
Okay, great question. So if I may, I want to kind of just walk you through what I did as a president, interim president at Columbus Community College. I really did not have experience with legislators prior to my presidential experience. And so I knew that I had a lot of ground to make up really quickly. And so what I did is I brought all of our New Mexico state representatives and senators to campus, fed them lunch. Of course, this was pre-COVID. But I wanted to not just build a relationship with them, I wanted to help them see the vision that I had in what we were doing within our institution. I wanted them to be able to see how we were making a difference for students, how we were making a difference in our community. And so I did that. Brought them all in and again, fed them lunch and showed them, not just told them about our programs, but I showed them. I showed them what each of our programs looked like, what our opportunities were for students and for the community. And that was hugely helpful because they were able to kind of be inside our world to be able to understand why we were doing some of the things that we were doing. And that was very beneficial. So some notable things that I was able to accomplish in that year, I was able to garner about $1 million in money for capital outlay projects and dual credit, things of that nature. And that was pretty big. It was pretty good considering I didn't have some of that experience going into it. But I also created some sustainable. So, I mean, like that's 1 year, but you always have to look at some sustainable opportunities. So one of the things, 750,000 of that came from our capital outlay projects, which is part of our master plan, which is very much a team effort within our institution. One of the efforts that I focused on was a big discussion at Roundhouse was on allied health. And of course, it's even bigger now because of COVID, but it was a big topic at the time. And after having conversations with my director of allied health, one of the things that she had told me months prior was that she needed to increase her applicant pool for the nursing program. And so I immediately saw a potential obstacle that I was going to run into, because we know that when we are trying to build a qualified applicant pool for nursing, you got to start at the prerequisite level. And so with that, we need more anatomy and physiology classes and microbiology and things like that. But our science classes were at max. We were operating at full capacity. There was no way that I could add any more science classes at this time. And so in lieu of going to legislators and asking them for allied health money, I worked with one of our New Mexico State representatives to try to find something that was a little bit more sustainable. And that was to convert a couple of our classrooms to science labs. And I knew that if we could do that, we could increase our science classes, or increase the number of completions there, and therefore increase the number of qualified applicants into the nursing program. And that with that opportunity, I felt like there was much more sustainability than just going in and asking for some nursing expansion. Now going in asking for nursing expansion, I think gives us a little bit stronger platform. So that just kind of gives you a little bit of an idea of my experience with legislators. So I think it really comes down to the relationships and helping them to understand the vision of what it is that we do as educators, to help them to be able to see how we're making a difference for students, how we're impacting them, and helping them to get those degrees to go into high wage, high demand jobs, and the difference that we're making within our community to meet industry demands, things of that nature. So that building that rapport and those relationships are critical at the Roundhouse.
Dr. Kirkendall, staying on the topic of fundraising as well as community building, there's a question coming in from the director of our Veterans Upward Bound program, which supports veteran students across the state to enter back into college that may or may not come to UNM-Taos specifically. So the question is that UNM-Taos has many contracts and grants serving community members, pre-college students, and those from multi-county catchments. Many of these people may never become UNM-Taos students. So what are your thoughts about the role of a community college in building the local communities throughout the northern region of New Mexico?
So I think we're in the business of education. And I think that we have to take the approach that our goal is to educate tomorrow's future. And sometimes that is going to be for them to come to UNM-Taos, and sometimes that is going to be for the greater good of the community. And I think that's part of what we do as a community college. We're community college, we're community based. And so I think that we have to look at the needs within the community and those populations, whether they're veteran populations, areas that need our assistance with education. And so I will never turn anybody away from education, because I think it's the foundation for our future. And I think it's kind of the direction that we want to be looking at. How do we make sure that we are securing that education for all populations, and we're eliminating those equity gaps that these different populations might face? So I think those are hard questions to ask, but also how do we continue to move forward with that? And make sure that we're educating them across the board. So,
thank you. And tying it into workforce and how we serve our community, what experience do you have with Integrated Education and Training, IET, the Workforce Innovation and Opportunities Act, WIOA, and what do you see as the role of a community college when it comes to preparing students for the workforce who may not yet have their high school equivalency or be college and career ready?
Okay, so there's lots of dynamics in that question. So I'll start off by saying I do have a lot of experience on the workforce side. I have been part of the Eastern Area Workforce Development Board for the last 2 years, and so we work directly with the WIOA and with those workforce connections on the job training, with customized training, with youth services, with all of those components that help pull together on the industry side. And I think that is so important. As a community college, as industry partners are critical. We have to have a strong connection to our industry partners and making sure that we are meeting the needs of our industry, that we have programs in place that offer students the opportunity to get high demand, high wage jobs within our areas. And so working with some of those outside agencies to do that is huge. One thing that I know as I was researching this area, I see UNM-Taos has a $7 million economic impact on Taos County. And that's great. And again, that's pre-COVID. So I see several opportunities there to be able to work with the community and businesses to be able to say, how do we help you bridge that gap that you may have struggled with during COVID? And then once we get there, how do we move that needle from that $7 million economic impact to beyond that? And I think a big part is having those workforce connections, and you have to stay connected on the industry side to do that. So individuals, I think another part of that question, Anita, was those who may not have their high school equivalency. And I know UNM-Taos is a very strong adult education program, and it's working with workforce connections to be able to say, what are those industry needs? What are those skill sets? And can we pull together some short-term training that allows us to take those individuals and be able to give them skills that are going to help prepare them for the workplace and industry. And then again, on the adult basic education side, helping them get their high school equivalency, and then showing them the opportunities to be able to go beyond that. I think there's so many times we have students who they start out thinking, okay, I just want to get a high school equivalency, or I just want to get this one class for this customized training. And it's our job to be able to show them that education provides endless opportunities, and they can go so much more beyond that if they choose. And we have the services and the structure in place to be able to help them do that.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Before we get to our next question, I'm going to pause for a moment and let Dr. Kirkendall catch her breath, get a sip of water. She's been doing a lot of talking and a lot of walking this morning, so we'll let her take a moment. And while she's doing so, I want to thank you all for submitting the questions. There are several that have come through the chat and through my emails here. So if you have any additional ones, please take a moment and send those in, and we'll try to get through as many as possible in the next 18 minutes or so. So moving on to the next question, and this is, I think, a fun one, which is, what is something that UNM-Taos is currently doing that impresses you?
So I think and I'm going to forget what it's called. I think the massage therapy is one program that I was kind of surprised, but yet not surprised to see. I think that is such a cool program that you don't see in very many areas. So I was really excited about that. But I think that probably the biggest thing that's exciting to me is the growth, the new building. I think Jessica told me they're hoping, as long as the rain doesn't derail it, is that they're going to be laying the concrete tomorrow. And that's super exciting to be able to see that going up. I'm going to have a tour of campus after these forums, but already the portions that I've seen, the facilities are beautiful and they're amazing, high tech. And I think those are the things that probably impress me the most. But I would say the diverse programs that you guys have in place, and just the innovation and the programs, or the initiatives, the projects, capital outlay projects, new buildings, the technology. I think those are the things that probably impress me the most.
And until I just close the shades, the amazing view that we have.
And the amazing view, yes, absolutely.
So thank you for that. That came from our staff council, and they have another one. This is a little bit more specific technical question, which is about a textbook affordability program, if you have one, have worked with them, and have any ideas about implementing.
Absolutely. So this is actually, I served as a project manager for our for our bookstore transition. So we actually moved to a new bookstore vendor last year. And so I got the privilege of being able to be that project manager through that entire process. And one of the things that we've worked on this year is setting up a textbook affordability program. I'm really big on looking at how we can utilize our resources in a way, leverage them to make the best impact possible. And we do that a lot of times on the institutional side, but I'm always looking for ways to do that on the student side as well. And this textbook affordability package is one way to do that. So with this program, it's actually going to launch fall of 21. So students who are, and most of them, so I have two different packages in place. I have a traditional textbook affordability program and a programmatic textbook affordability package. And with the traditional one, those particular courses are mostly gen ed, some program related, just depending on the cost effectiveness piece of it for students. But all of those courses for gen ed and those areas, students will pay a per credit hour fee for their textbooks. In our case, it's $25 per credit hour. So for a 3 credit hour course, they're paying $75. That includes textbook, it includes ebook if it's available, it includes lab manuals for science classes, it includes access codes. So I know access codes, those are expendables, and so those usually are high cost items for our students. And so this allows students to be able to have those for a cost of a 3 credit hour class of $75. The only thing it doesn't include is kits. So if there is like anatomy and physiology has a dissection kit, then it doesn't include that. Or if an art class has an art kit, it doesn't include those, but it does include everything else. What's great about that emphasis is on accessibility and affordability. We want it to be very affordable for students. Students, I know that a lot of times you're trying to juggle everything, and so you've gotten everything paid for, and then all of a sudden you're now at class time, and I just need to get till next paycheck before I can get textbooks. And now you're going a week or a week and a half into the class or 2 weeks without a textbook, and it really creates a significant obstacle for you. And then on the faculty side, I know it's very difficult to try to traverse that gap when some students don't have their textbooks. So this takes that accessibility piece out of it. Students are able to go almost like a concierge service. They can go right to the bookstore and just pick them up, or they can have them mailed directly to them. It's based off of a rental program, so students do have to return those, but they also have the option to purchase. And so they just pay the difference between what they've already paid and what the cost of that textbook is. So if a student says, you know what, this anatomy and physiology textbook is going to benefit me throughout the nursing program, so I want to keep this, they're able to do that. So that's on the traditional textbook affordability package. The programmatic is really based on, and under our program, students need to keep their textbooks, and because they're usually using them throughout that entire program. And so we've based this off of a opportunity where it kind of spreads that cost out for them a little bit. They're able to purchase them in bundles. And so students in the nursing program who might have to pay $850 for textbooks their first semester, they're able to kind of spread that out over 4 semesters instead. Streamlines the financial aid process significantly because it's built directly into tuition. And it's for students who don't have a financial aid, it's a tax write-off. So another added benefit there. So that's kind of my experience with textbook affordability. I'm very excited about that opportunity on our campus moving forward.
Thank you. That was a great question. I think the first time it's been posed.
Yes, yeah, it is a really good question. Yes.
So this next one, so a lot of these questions, they are somewhat repetitive or duplicate from your sessions this morning. Okay. We spent a great deal of time this morning talking about our dual credit and dual enrollment program. So this is a follow-up to that, which is Dr. Kirkendall, you indicated that you have dual enrollment under your purview in student affairs. What challenges and opportunities do you see with our dual enrollment program in academic affairs and in rural North Central New Mexico?
So I think that, dual credit brings about a whole different set of challenges, but also a lot of opportunities. And so I think the big thing is looking at making sure that we're embedded within the high schools. And I know that UNM-Taos is, after a lot of research and a lot of discussion with people today, I know that you guys have done a really good job at embedding directly into the schools and setting up. I think the biggest challenge is making sure that students have a clear pathway from the dual credit side, from secondary to the dual credit side, and also to post-secondary. And so it's having those education plans in place that allow students to be unique and kind of go their own path, but yet have a structured pathway that really works towards what their goal is, their career and educational goals are. And so I know we highlighted this morning education plans that I work with the students that want to go to get a 4-year degree. And so we have ed plans that are based off of STEM degrees and also non-STEM degrees that really help students focus on, again, the general education requirements, but really have them mapped out into each of those program areas. How many English classes, the composition classes that they need, are they getting the right math? If they're STEM, are they taking, college algebra versus a survey of mathematics, those types of things. And so it really helps kind of guide them through that process. I think some of the other obstacles that, we have to be transparent with students is that, they may not know exactly what they want to do. So taking some dual credit classes to kind of get a feel for what their interests are is great. But being transparent with the financial aid perspective. Dual credit students do not get a financial aid. They don't qualify for financial aid until they graduate. But if they take too many credits that don't count toward that degree path, then it could find them past that attempted hours. And so I think making sure that it's a very well-rounded advising approach and that students have a guided pathway, whether it's 4-year, transfer to a 4-year institution, it's a career technical education, it's allied health, which usually has a completely different set of prerequisites. It's making sure that students have those opportunities to be able to guide through what their unique pathway is.
Excellent. Another new question that has not come up yet this morning is, as UNM-Taos Chancellor, what is your vision for institutional research? What are your thoughts regarding the role of data and institutional research in advancing equity outcomes in higher education institutions?
So I'm very much of a data-driven person. I think it's really important. We have to look at the data to help guide our decision-making. And so IR is critical. You have to have IR in that component in order to be able to do that. So that's the first thing that I'm always going to be looking at. Okay, what does our data tell us? And if we dive into the data is what usually is going to show us what those equity gaps are. So one of the things that I'm involved with right now, I'm project manager for our Achieving the Dream. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with Achieving the Dream initiatives, but we're part of a rural cohort that just started with Achieving the Dream, and it's really based off of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and it's very much of infiltrating that data-driven approach to find those equity gaps and to ensure that inclusive approach to the initiatives and things that we're doing. So from an institutional research perspective, I've got my IR person on speed dial, because that's the first question that I'm always going to ask is, what is the data telling us? I want to know what the industry needs are. I want to know what the data is before we move forward. Because if we're not doing that, then we're not going to be establishing sustainable initiatives that really progress UNM-Taos forward. And so absolutely critical in moving forward.
Absolutely. So enrollment, we talked about this some this morning. So this is again a two-part question. I'm going to try to combine some in the interest of time. Is innovative ideas for increasing our enrollment and retention, particularly with students that come to us that may not be college ready.
So college readiness is really an important thing. And I talked about this this morning with the leadership team, and I know a big focus in higher education was making sure that students were college ready, making sure that they're college ready, and then things shifted to being student ready. And for me, as I've gone through over 21 years of experience in higher education, I can say that I really think that there's a place in the middle, that there has to be a level of college ready on the student side, but also a level of student ready on the college side. And I think that's really the important component here. I think oftentimes when we look at college readiness, what we do is we tend to stack program on top of program for students, and it becomes overwhelming and very daunting for a student. And it feels like I'm never going to be able to climb out of that. So I think it's really important to be able to look at that balance to say, how do we make sure that we're student ready on our side, but that we also provide those opportunities to kind of bring students up a little bit. And I think the key with that is really working closely with our secondary school partners to how can we integrate within the school systems to be able to improve that college readiness as students are coming out of high school. At the same time, having an adult population who maybe has been out of school for 10 years and they're not quite, maybe they don't remember math. Math is usually one that if you don't use it, you lose it kind of thing. And so being able to put systems in place within the institution that help bridge those gaps. I think the adult education component is extremely important. We've utilized boot camps, things that really are short term that help students kind of get over that hump of college readiness. They just need a little bit of extra boost, but they really need to be able to, hopefully jump into college classes as soon as possible so that they don't feel overwhelmed like they're not going to be able to get through it. And wraparound services. We have to have the integrated services that help the students along the way. Early alerts are important. Being able to recognize when a student is starting to struggle early on so that we can engage some wraparound services to kind of help students be able to progress through. Because once they get behind, a lot of times it's difficult to catch up. So I would say those are probably some key components.
Excellent. So we've got just about 10 more minutes and probably a couple more questions so we can get through. So this next question comes from a longtime staff member in our Office of Student Affairs, and it's about team building, internal relationships, and building a campus culture within faculty and staff, and fostering that dynamic that then can be one that embraces and is visible and felt by students to create a welcoming environment. And how does that happen? And how would you make that happen?
So, I think it starts with having a team atmosphere. And so you have to cultivate that as a leader. And I think part of it for me, I'm not one who is going to ever ask my staff to do something that I'm not willing to do myself. And I think that's really important. I'm the kind of person that definitely not a micromanager. I don't jump in and do things for people, but at the same time, I never want my team to feel like I'm not willing to do something that that I'm asking them to do. And so I really feel like things are very much of a team effort. And so I think part of that is a relationship. It's building that team camaraderie, but it's establishing the relationships. It's going out into each of these constituencies. It's getting to know the faculty. It's getting to know the staff, getting to know the students, getting to know everybody, giving opportunities for people to voice their thoughts on different ideas and different initiatives, allowing people to be creative. I'll tell you, the most creative people in the world are faculty and students. And if you'll just listen and allow them that opportunity and that platform to be able to express those creative ideas, sometimes they don't know how to move forward with it. But if you'll give them that platform to be able to do that, then usually there's someone else that knows how to run with it. So I think creating that team and that fostering environment, you have to be willing to, jump in there with your team and, be there when they're, engaged in student organizations and when they're engaged in community events and when the faculty are struggling, that you're there to kind of help along the way. So I think that's probably the way I've approached it. I have regular team meetings with my group. And one of the first questions that I ask, we'll go through, we usually have an agenda and we'll have all of the, very specific things of what's going on in different area. But the question I ask every time is, what obstacles are you facing? What can I help you with? And what do you need? What is one area that you're finding it difficult to be able to get, what this particular job done or what you need? Because I want them to have that culture of being able to come to me anytime that there's a problem and that we can work through it together. I'm kind of a process cleaner. I love taking processes and streamlining them and helping people see an efficient way of doing it that still continues to meet student success initiatives. And so again, kind of fostering that environment where people can come to you for have that transparency. and share ideas and have a voice. So.
Excellent, thank you. We'll end with this question. What is your long-term vision and goals for UNM-Taos? That is, say, 10 years or so down the road.
So 10 years down the road. So what I would hope to see is, visiting with Jessica this morning, she talked about, building this new building here. And, with this goal of bringing the entire campus together. So I would say in 10 years, what I would like to see is I would like to see the entire team together on one campus. I would love to see us looking at other opportunities for how we can expand that. What other buildings can we build? I know there's a new STEM building, but are there other avenues that we can explore and create some programs looking at industry needs? Is there a specific program that we might be able to bring to UNM-Taos? So I think probably the biggest thing that I would see is, hopefully you guys select me and I'm able to be a part of that 10 years down the road.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Well, that just about brings us to the end of our time. A few reminders I'd like to share with those of you joining us today is that we do have in just about 20 minutes at 3 p.m. we'll have another public forum that you are welcome and encouraged to attend. Registration is required, so if you've not yet done so, please follow the link in the email that went out last week and register for the 3 p.m. session. We also want to encourage you to fill out the candidate feedback survey, which is also in the email that I sent out. There's a link to that survey. We are encouraging folks to provide that feedback to Provost Holloway as he is considering all of the candidates to make the best decision for UNM-Taos. And lastly, if you'd like to review any of these public sessions, they are being recorded. At the conclusion of the final candidates public sessions, we'll post all the recordings at that time out of the interest of fairness and equity to all of our candidates. So please do continue to check back to that website for additional information, recordings, and the link to submit feedback. We hope to see you today at 3 o'clock for our next public session with our Chancellor candidate, Dr. Robin Kirkendall. Thank you so much for joining us today. And I also would like to acknowledge and thank Dr. James Malm, the chair of the search committee and Chancellor for UNM Gallup, for his support during the search process and for being a wonderful host to Dr. Kuykendall today. Thank you all for joining us, and we'll see you again soon.
Thank you.